I'm here with Danny Roscoe here in Speaker's Corner, and basically I just wanted to let people know like what you're about, and the whole black and white unite. Just you want to explain that to people?
It's just about a unity. It's an anti-Marxist organisation about bringing people together and not having the things that Black Lives Matter have been telling people, the division that they've been making. It's just saying, look, we're not going to agree with that. We're going to stand together as British people, and we're going to make sure that we do it right.
What is your opinion on Black Lives Matter? You know, like, a lot of people that think that they're doing good things, but they might not be informed.
Black Lives Matter are just, all they are is a Marxist grifting gang of thugs, to be honest. It gets into a lot of detail, but essentially they've come over from America over to the UK. They've made South-hating white liberals come and jump on the banner to protect people like me. I don't need any Marxist help. There's nothing here to say that Black lives don't matter. So when I come out with an All Lives Matter banner and they say that's a racist insignia, that's hate imagery from what Twitter said, they banned me from the Black Lives Matter for the All Lives Matter banner. And you see them living in the big houses. They're saying like Patrice Collins. They live in the big houses. They brought up £15 million worth of housing. Nobody's saying about that. That's all from the donations. That's why it's a thug company, just full of thugs. And all they're doing is dividing the black community. They're not putting no money back into the black community, and they've still got the same problems now as what they had 3 years ago. Nothing's changed. And the only thing that's changed is Patrice Collins has got richer. People are using Black Lives Matter as a tool to shut people up. It's an anti-white movement. If you want to say something, then you're going to be told that you're a sellout because you've got a brown skin. If you say something because you've got a white skin, you're a racist. It's the dividing the people. If anyone does support Black Lives Matter still today, you need to give your head a wobble. To be fair.
Yeah, no, I've noticed there was a guy in Bristol who got nicked because he was going to give donations to one of them youth groups, and
he's been arrested. The guy in Bristol, £30,000 he stole. He doesn't know where the money's gone. But the thing is with that, they haven't released who it is. They haven't released a picture. They won't say what's happening in the investigation. They won't tell us when the court case will be. And like the people who took down Coulson statue, justice will never be served because it will be against Black Lives Matter, and they'll never rule against it. It's changing justice. You can't have a critical race movement dictating what justice is going to happen, because the 4 people who did the Coulson statue, there's evidence on the video, they've said to the media what they've done, so it's an open and shut case. But they got away with it because it wasn't about what they did, it was about Coulson. And that there is changing our democracy. But Black Lives Matter did come from critical law studies, theory. It comes from the law. So it was saying about Angela Davis and these people were saying about how the law is bad for black people. And then one day they walked into the room with all these high solicitors, lawyers, everything, and they said, you know what, the problem is white people. From that point on, they got kind of chucked out, and they said, yeah, look, we divided the whole people. We can now do it on a mass scale. They've done it, it's very successful, and it needs to be eradicated from society. That is it.
Any other thing you want to say to people out there?
No, just do things for yourself. Don't listen to any of this critical race theory. Don't listen to any of this sexualisation of our children, because you've got to think about it. It's a Marxist organisation, and they've taken it from where Herbert Marcuse said in 1967, he had an essay called Liberation, right? And it was literally how to liberate yourself from the modern day man, how to be. And it was full of sexual innuendos, it was perverted. Now they're using it on the children, because you got to remember, Black Lives Matter said that they want to destabilise the nuclear family. So they're bringing in queer theory, which is messing with kids' heads. They don't even know their own sexuality now, and then at 3 years old, they're trying to say, well, hang on a minute, if you like a boy, you might be gay. If you like this, you might be gay. That's what they're doing to the kids, because it's destroying the family, and you can't pass knowledge down through your family if your family is destroyed. And this is what they want. They only want to make other Marxists, other activists to whip it up, and then one day there'll be enough of them, and then we'll be able to do that society. And we need to stop it. We need to stop it now. Stop it now. When it gets to children, that's that line.
Yeah, fucking.
That's when that line's there.
We're going to Cardiff at the London Fair for our kids then.
Is that with the Welsh?
PCP Wales.
Is that PCP Wales? PCP Wales are doing a very good job. Kin, you should be pleased with yourself. Keep going. And I want to do a lot of stuff with them because I've learnt over the last 2 months probably how perverted in the education system these Marxists are, and I know Kim's doing a lot of work for it and trying to stop it coming into Wales. So big up, and yeah, I'll try and get there if I can. As always, I can't always do it, but
Yeah, no, thank you, man. Thank you.
no problem. Cheers, my brother.
Black, white, unite, yeah?
Definitely, all the time, all the time.
Because he was rebelling against the Nazis.
May I show the evidence? May I show evidence now?
Something else. There's a man called Boris Nemtsov, a Russian politician. He spilled the beans that Russia was planning to invade Ukraine and take Crimea. He got assassinated next to the Kremlin. Yeah, this is what happens in a country which I consider has got a fascist government, like under Putin, where if you go against what Putin says, you get bumped off. Even if you're in Britain, you know, in Salisbury, dissidents have been poisoned by Novichok poisoning in Salisbury.
Putin's trademark. Putin's trademark.
Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia.
Novichok or
And
plutonium.
in London,
Novichok or plutonium.
a dissident got poisoned by radioactive plutonium.
I have here a
Alexander
picture
Yurchenko.
from Ukraine, 1940. It says, Heil Hitler, Slava Bandera. This is the same guy that you call a hero. You call this guy a hero?
Well, did Bandera make that poster or something? You know, let me
Doesn't matter,
explain
you're
it to you.
discussing things
hold
which
on,
aren't
hold on, hold on,
relevant.
hold on. Let me face this allegation, because I like to face these allegations head
Everyone
on,
can
so
have a
that
look.
the opposition can't go back at me later and say, oh no, that means it's true because it didn't face it. What the Soviets were doing during these days was that they actually dressed up as the UPA and started exterminating the people themselves, which is something they did very often. It's something they did in the beginning of the war in Ukraine. They removed insignia from their military uniform, which means they looked like Ukrainian troops. They walked in the Ukrainian town centers and they just took over, just like that. Now that is a military crime right there. And you know, old habits die hard. Just like during the Soviet Union, they tried to give a bad name to Stepan Bandera. That's the same way they're trying to give a bad name to the Ukrainians right now.
Okay, now history talk, yeah? And as an uncompromising leader of the militant terrorist, uncompromising leader of the militant terrorist branch of our organization of Ukraine nationalists, Bandera became a Nazi collaborator who lived with his deputy under German protection after World War II began. In preparation for the attack on the USSR, the Nazi recruited Bandera's follower to act as a Ukrainian-speaking policeman and to serve into Ukrainian volunteer. Historian Karol Berkov, among the others, has shown that Bandera, his deputy, and the Nazi shared a key obsession, namely the notion that the Jew in Ukraine, that's why you were saying, and you were right, the Jew in Ukraine were behind communism and Stalinism, imperialism, and must be destroyed. Simple facts. Thank you.
Simple fact. Okay. That basically sums up everything. Simple fact.
Communism, because he blamed the Jews who were behind communism and Stalinism.
Okay, you said that already.
He fight with the
You said that already. Now this guy has a go.
Hello
there.
Are you
Hello there.
finished?
I
His
let you
turn
speak.
now.
You let me speak.
This
I
turn
let
now.
you
Finished or not?
I let you
This man
speak.
is
You
from
let me
Okay, go on,
speak.
go on, let him finish.
He
finished.
speaks now.
I finished.
Okay, thank you.
He just wanted me to
You
say
go.
that I let him speak so that he
Yeah.
could say I'm finished.
Don't cut me out because I didn't.
That's
I
excellent. I love it.
Carry
I
on.
love it.
Yeah.
Very, very childish of you.
no.
Look, let me
Try-
just ask you
try-
one
carry
question.
on.
Let me just ask you one question.
Yes.
Did you get that information from Wikipedia?
No,
It would be okay if you did.
no,
No, but it would be okay if you
no,
did.
no.
Where
History
is
News Network. History
That's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Now, I'm not going to question his source. That's not where I'm coming from. But I thought he was reading Wikipedia because then
No.
I could show him a little bit lower after Wikipedia talks about how Bandera cooperated with the Nazis. It explains that he was cooperating to fight against the communists who were actually trying to exterminate the Ukrainians. And later on, Bandera was sent to jail by the Nazis because he started creating a rebellion against the Nazi regime because he never actually intended on cooperating with the Nazis. And he was sent to jail. He was sent to jail. Oh, it's not the
carry
reason.
on,
Huh? It's not
carry
the
on.
reason. I love this. I love
Carry
this.
on.
It's why I said never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. And it's very easy to see all the mistakes in the pro-Russian propaganda nowadays. Because Bandera was a Ukrainian hero and not a single extermination was done during his time ruling the UPA.
Really?
The only time, the only time he was in jail, he was in jail, he was in jail. You need to study some history because during the time that some Ukrainian military groups have done some pogroms on the Poles and the Jews, which is something I condemn, wholeheartedly condemn.
Why do you include the Jews?
Because the Jews
It was mainly
the Poles, but there was some.
You
What do you mean?
Why include the Jews so you make
Because
it
they
look
were
like
about
it's
the-
a Nazism against the Jews. No, it's
What do
not.
you mean?
It was mainly against the Poles.
It was also
It's
against
the Poles,
Jews.
100%.
No, it
They
was.
might have killed other ethnicities,
not
but it doesn't
100%.
mean it was
No,
about.
100%.
Why do you include the Jews in that? It
Because
wasn't
they were
because
also
of Jews.
killed.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they
including
did it
everyone.
because of the Jews. They did it because of the Poles, not because of the Jews.
Yes, they
That's
did
the main
also
reason.
because of the
Not
Jews.
the Jews, no.
What are you even
That's a
talking about?
Nazi
Oh, okay,
Germany.
hold on.
You carry
This
on,
is
carry on.
The
You carry
massacre
talking.
in Poland.
this man, he's
One at a time.
debating me because I'm including Jews in the people who are getting killed. He doesn't
Exactly,
want
yeah.
the Jews to
You
be
forget
included.
about the
He doesn't want
Gypsies.
the killings of the Jews to be mentioned. And these are the people who support Russia. I think that says more than anything else. Now let me explain this. Let me explain the situation. Oh, he anyway.
Just carry on.
No, it's another guy. So speaking of which, I hope I can catch back my train of thought right now because there's been a few interruptions. There's been some killings of Poles and Jews by some Ukrainians, which were.
Can you be more precise? It's the highest killing after the Holocaust. It's over 100,000 people.
No, it's not.
It's
The Holodomor was
A lot more died in Ukraine because of Stalin.
1933.
The Holodomor.
World War. We're talking about the World War here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
The Holodomor happened before
Yes,
the
exactly. It
Holocaust.
was
no
way
problem.
before.
But the Holodomor was
Way
higher than the
before. And
Holocaust.
also, when you include other countries, when you say it was the Poles and the Jews, it wasn't just the Ukrainians that died in the Holodomor. There's a lot of people that died, including the Russians.
Mainly the Ukrainians.
Yes, so mainly, but a
No,
lot of people.
no, 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 no.
Other people.
A lot of
died.
people.
It wasn't just
Some
them.
Jews died
It
in
wasn't
the
just them.
Holodomor.
The Holodomor. Yes, you keep including the Jews. The Jews are
Hold on, hold on.
everywhere.
I don't.
They banned to.
Look, hold on. This is the difference between us. I don't mind including the Jews in the extermination of Ukrainians. You mind including
I
the
don't.
Jews in
No,
the
'cause you're
extermination of
including them.
Poles.
No, you're including
Why is
them.
that? I don't know.
No, you're including them
I don't
to
know
gain
why
some
that is.
sympathy.
Now,
So you just,
it
you
sounds
just
a
wanna
little bit
link them for
suspicious
some
if you ask me.
reason.
But let me tackle the actual issue right here and now, because this is something we need to speak about. Bandera was not in charge of the UPA when these pogroms happened. Bandera was in jail, put there by the Nazis because he didn't want to be part of the pogroms. He didn't want to be part of Nazi Germany. He received. But look it up
I know why.
right
I'm
now.
just gonna
Look it up
The
right
problem
now.
is this: all these followers were in jail, or they participated.
A lot
some
of them
kind-
were. Some of them were.
Did they
getting bogged
do
down in
this?
No,
little
hold on.
details.
But
I haven't finished my point.
Go on, go on.
These followers and all these followers, did they participate to a crime, some kind of genocide in the west of Ukraine?
Some of them did, yes. But that's why I'm a Bandera supporter and not a supporter of everything that his troops did when he was in jail. I mean, hold on a second. How can we blame Bandera for the killings that some of his troops, not all of them, some of them made when he was in jail? Exactly because he opposed those kinds of killings.
You don't need to be outside to order the killings. You can order the killings
What do
from
you
the
mean?
jail.
He ordered exactly the opposite. Go to the Wikipedia page right now. He ordered exactly the opposite. He gave orders to his troops. He said that Nazi Germany is not our ally, that we need to do what we can to resist them now, because they will do the same thing as the Soviets did to us, which is exterminate us by the millions. And that is why, when Bandera came back to Ukraine from jail, his military group, the UPA, fought both against the Soviets and against the Nazis, and they were giving fake passports to Jews to save them from getting killed. That is what happened. I mean, you're shaking your head. I guess you don't agree with this. But you can look this up. Every single thing that I'm saying right now is true. Every single one of you is invited, in fact encouraged, to look this up. If you disagree, you can disagree as much as you want, but you can't disagree with facts, with what actually happened.
Do you want to talk about the killings of the Russian soldiers?
Okay, here we go.
Why?
Hey, you're getting bogged down. You're getting bogged down.
He's disproven in one point. He jumps to a different point.
It's a war. It's a massacre. It's a war crime.
Do you admit that you
Talk
have been
about
wrong
now.
when
Talk about
calling
Ukraine
Bandera
now,
a
the
Nazi?
invasion
You
now.
admit
I'm
you're
not.
wrong.
Of course not. Because he is.
Of course
He
not.
was.
There you go. Then
He
we're
was a
not-
Nazi.
We're not going to the next discussion until you admit that you were wrong, because they just proved you wrong.
Okay.
You see what I mean? I can't discuss with somebody who I disprove in front of a crowd and in front of the camera, and who still refuses to accept that he's been wrong. I can't debate with you like that, man. I'm sorry. It's pointless.
Can I go with the same article?
Go on. Read the article.
The same article, yes? So, you're right. The Germans intended to keep Ukraine for themselves. They arrested Bandera for his intransigence on the issue of independence, but released him in 1944 when he appeared at the popularity.
At the end of the war, around the end of the war.
That his popularity with Ukrainians might help stem the Soviet advance. But whatever the disappointment with the Germans, the Banderists, now he's talking to followers of Bandera,
The followers of Bandera,
yes, never disagree with the Jewish policy in Ukraine, which eventually killed over 1.5 million
But the Banderists under
Ukrainian
Bandera.
Jews.
The Banderists under Bandera.
Yes, they
Under
killed,
Bandera. With
yes.
Bandera out of prison. That's not what happened. There were, again, as I said, it wasn't a million. It wasn't a million.
It says here,
He denying the presence of Nazis in
it says the Banderists,
What,
which
saying
is
they
the
were not-
Bandera
No, I don't
follower,
deny their presence. I'm
has
saying that
killed
it's a very
over 1
negligible
million
amount,
people.
and they're not in positions
Are you,
of power.
are you denying that your state is not a fascist state?
My state is not a fascist.
Why do you regulate speech? Okay. Why do you regulate culture? Right? Why, like, are you legitimizing elections when a big portion of the Eastern Ukrainian region didn't vote? Explain.
I love the fact that you exactly. No, but hold on. I love the fact that you brought up the eastern regions in Ukraine, because I already proved to you in the discussion we had, in the conversation we had, that you're wrong in this.
Yeah.
Because the eastern Ukrainian regions had already declared their independence from Ukraine before the election happened in Ukraine. Now I ask you, how are the Ukrainians supposed to take votes from a population that's hostile, that has armed militias patrolling the streets, patrolling the city centers, and refuse any kind of Ukrainian bureaucrats to go in the place?
Okay.
How are they supposed to vote?
So let me ask you. I'm sure some have abstained. I'm not denying
What do
that.
you mean some? No. That's
Some
not good
have
enough.
abstained. No.
They did not
Some-
abstain.
some-
They
some have fought back.
separated.
They've
They separated from
okay.
Ukraine.
So I will expose your double standard here. So
Please.
you are saying that the Maidan coup was justified in 2014, right?
I think it was justified.
It was
Yes,
justified.
it started as a peaceful
Okay,
protest.
okay.
People started getting shot at. But
Okay,
first, before
so-
we go any further, I need you.
Are you going to let me
I need you
finish?
to admit something. I need you to admit that you were wrong when you said that the Ukrainians in eastern Ukraine were not allowed to vote because they didn't want to vote. They separated
I'm
from
not going
Ukraine.
to admit that
You
I'm
need to
wrong.
admit you're
I'm
wrong. We're not
to
going
admit that
any
I'm wrong.
further.
Because
No.
there are people that wanted to vote and they were not allowed.
They were not allowed. They separated from Ukraine.
No.
They had separated.
Vote, that's very convenient to not open voting
is
polls
it?
in those regions. Yes, it
Are
is
we
very
supposed to
convenient.
allow Russians who live in Russia vote for the elections in Ukraine? Is that really what we're saying here?
It's your population.
It wasn't. They separated.
It's your
They didn't want
population.
to be our
They are born
population.
there. They have families there for generations.
They willingly
They are
separated.
Ukrainians.
They willingly separated.
They didn't join Russia though.
They willingly separated
They didn't
still.
join Russia.
Crimea joined Russia. And
the
Eastern
Donbass.
Ukraine willingly separated.
They didn't join
Donbass
Russia.
didn't join Russia. But they already had Russian troops there, and they had willingly,
There was
willingly,
no Russian
they
troops in
separated.
Donbass.
They
There
separated
was
from
no
the
Russian
United
troops in
Nations do not
Donbass.
recognize that border. They don't recognize that Crimea is belonging to Russia. United Nations, they don't recognize it.
Excellent.
It's
good.
an illegal
I agree with
annexation.
it. It's an
So they're
illegal
technically still Ukrainian.
annexation. Thank
They're
you very
still
much.
Ukrainian, though.
Thank you very much.
They're still Ukrainian, they're not Russian. So you can't say that they're Russian.
Hold on, no, wait, guys. Listen to me for a second. The Eastern, we're talking right now about the region in Donbass and why they were not allowed to vote. Now the reason is
They weren't allowed.
No, allowed. I'm saying it like this because they were no longer, according to them, according to what they wanted, they were no longer part of Ukraine. Nobody wanted to vote for Ukraine because they wanted to separate from Ukraine.
Okay.
They didn't see themselves as
that is
Ukraine
part- They
anymore.
They saw themselves as Ukrainian.
You're lying.
They're Russian
You don't
speaking
understand what you're
Ukrainians.
talking
They're
about. Wait,
Russian
stop.
speaking, Russian Ukrainians.
They declared they declared the Donetsk Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic. The Donetsk People's Republic and the Luhansk People's Republic.
They were Ukrainians. He said it straight after.
Yes.
He said I'm
Guys,
from
they're
them, from the area.
separated. How are we having this conversation right now?
Oh, you just said the UN didn't recognize it. So how would it be separated if the UN didn't recognize it?
We couldn't send anybody to collect the votes because they
That's
didn't
very
have the
convenient.
votes.
I understand. Look, can I speak about it?
They said they had armed militias in the city centers. They did not accept Ukrainian laws. They did not accept Ukrainian bureaucracy. If they don't accept Ukrainian laws and bureaucracy and Ukrainian rules, why should they be allowed to vote?
All right. I want to expose your double standard. So again, like our conversation got interrupted. There are cameras here. In your opinion, the Maidan coup was justified, right? So you're saying that the Maidan coup was justified, but the people, the separatists opposing the nationalist coup, they're terrorists.
Yes.
They're terrorists. That's your double standard. That's your fucking double standard. That is a double
There's
standard.
very deep
That is a
differences
double standard.
between the Maidan
No,
and
it's
between
exactly the same.
in between the
Exactly
Eastern
the
European
same.
rebels. No, there's huge differences.
No,
the
it's
main
exactly the
difference
same thing.
is how it all started. And in Maidan, it started with a lawful, orderly, and peaceful protest with a huge amount of people going to Kyiv, going to the capital, and trying to persuade the president to actually go back on what he was doing, which was bringing Ukraine into closer relations with Russia, which is something he promised not to do. And instead, he had promised before he got elected to have closer economic relations with the EU. Ukrainians went to protest peacefully. They went and they protested. And meanwhile, Yanukovych was scared by the amount of people, by the scope of the protesters, and he tried to intimidate them into going home. He started beating them up by police brutality. He started shooting them. And then the Ukrainians started rebelling against it because they were getting shot at, they were getting attacked, they were getting beat up, their freedoms were being oppressed.
No. Yeah, go on. Keep going.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna call your bullshit, right? That the Maidan coup was something defensive, was something that Ukrainians did to defend themselves.
Yes.
I'm gonna explain you something. This happened in the last term of the presidency of Yanukovych, right? So if if your country really wanted to do something democratic and fair, they would have waited 1 year, and then there will be new elections, and they could elect a new pro-EU president. But they haven't done that. They have decided to rebel and take over the establishment. So if you support nationalists taking over the establishment by force, why you don't support separatists saying no, we want to be a part of this?
Because the separatists immediately started rebelling against the Ukrainians. Well, the Ukrainians were trying to do it peacefully to persuade the Ukrainian president to actually go back on his lies, to
It
actually
was not
keep his
peaceful.
word. And Ukrainians,
It was not peaceful.
Ukrainians, whether 1 year, 2 years, or 1 day, Ukrainians should not be forced to obey the laws that they did not vote for, that they disagree with. They have the right to protest. They went and they exerted
They
that
have the right to
and they were
protest.
getting attacked. They were getting shot.
have
They
the
were
right
getting
to
beat up.
protest.
They were getting brutalized.
They have the right
and they
to
deserve
protest.
to fight back against that brutality.
They do, and they have the right to protest. And
they
they
did.
also have the right to elect a new government, not take over the establishment by force, which is what happened.
They weren't trying
But hold on. That like last election in Ukraine, that was a bit iffy. I mean, Putin was congratulating whoever it was that got elected before the result was known.
That's true. That's true. If he was congratulating Yanukovych before he got elected, I think it means a lot because Yanukovych Yanukovych is a Russian puppet. Everybody knew he was a
How
Russian
about all the
puppet.
involvement?
But in those days, okay, hold on.
How about,
You guys
all
might ask.
the American involvement in every
Okay, here we
election
go.
you had?
What about this? What about this?
Yeah, what about this? Okay, great.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
finish
Okay,
on.
so
And then
let's
we
talk
come back
about
to what
Ukraine and
about-
Russia. Actually. Let's
question, a question as well. It's how I feel about it. I look at the situation in Crimea. Now, Crimea was originally part of Russia, am I right?
Yes. When the Soviet Union separated, Crimea was part of the Russian Soviet Republic.
Now,
Of the
my
Russian
feeling
Republic.
now, my feeling is, if Crimea wants to break away from Ukraine and join Russia, if that's the will of the people in Crimea, they should have the right to do that. In the same way, if the people in Ukraine want to break, where is in Ukraine, to break away from Russia and look west to the European Union and NATO, they should have the same right to do that. And that's how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it.
But that's not what happened. That's exactly not what happened. What happened actually is that Russia, instead of trying to ask Ukraine to give an election to Crimea and to Donbass, whether they would like to leave or remain, Russia simply invaded Crimea with their troops, occupied Crimea, and then did a referendum at gunpoint with their troops and their reporters being allowed to vote in the referendum.
No. There's a clear contradiction there. When you say they invaded, but earlier on, you just 2 minutes ago, you said it was part of the Russian Empire, of the USSR.
No, it was
Okay,
it
part
was
of USSR. It was given by Nikita.
You're
It was a
distorting
low
the
decision.
situation. It was given to Ukraine. It was offered to
Who
Ukraine
gave it
as
to
a sign
Ukraine?
of friendship.
Who gave
the
it to
Russian
Yeltsin.
leader?
The Russian,
Yeltsin.
it's not Yeltsin, it's way before. It was Nikita. It was Nikita, 1954.
Khrushchev.
No, it was Nikita. Yeah.
Nikita Khrushchev.
Yeah, Nikita that gave it to them. Yeah.
I don't remember who exactly
Yeah,
gave
it was
to
him.
them.
It was
I
him.
admit.
So he
But
gave
it
it.
doesn't matter
So
who
when you
gave it to
say
them.
when you say invaded,
it was given.
yeah, it was given. So they took it back. When you say they invaded,
What do
that's
you
the
mean they
wrong
took
word.
it back? Dude, you don't just give something to someone and then just take it back like that.
You know
Okay,
why?
look,
You know
I'm gifting this ring to this beautiful lady who I want to marry.
It makes
But
you-
then a year after I say,
makes
okay,
you-
I'm gonna take the ring
It's
back.
morally wrong, but it doesn't make it wrong.
Yes, it
It's
does.
morally
It's
wrong,
theft.
but it's not wrong. It's my
Dude,
stuff.
it's
I take
theft.
it back.
No.
And that's the first thing. And the second
No,
thing,
it's theft.
no, it's
You
not. The
you don't know
first
the
thing.
law, man.
What do you mean?
If you gift something to someone and they keep using
It was
and then you take it back,
No,
it's a,
it was.
it's theft.
It wasn't going through any referendum. It was a sole decision by Nikita. He decided.
So what?
Well, it was
It was
one
accepted
person
by
deciding.
Russia.
It wasn't accepted.
It was
wasn't.
accepted
if
by
it was,
Russia.
they wouldn't be happy to go back to Russia. 70% of the people there, you only got 10%.
You know why it was accepted by Russia? I'll tell you why. Because in those days there was no hatred between Ukrainians and Russians. But now there is hatred because the Russians have brought that hatred on themselves, and because the Russians started hating the Ukrainians because of their propaganda and their brainwashing and their government pointing the finger and saying they are Nazis. That's why there is hatred now. Because of Putin, because of his ambition, and because of brainwashed people.
Okay,
that's
good.
why.
Now, are you going to condemn the atrocities done by the Ukrainian army? We saw video. Everyone saw the video.
In every war, every
No,
war.
hold on.
If
No,
by
it's
the
all
end
right.
of this
I'm
war,
talking about war
if
crime.
by
I'm
the
talking
end of
about
this
war
war,
crime.
if
I'm
the,
talking
by
about
the
war
end of
crime.
this
Can I
war,
finish the question?
no, I'm already answering.
No. How can you answer the question?
I know what the question is. You already told me. Let's go on.
All right, let me finish. Yeah. So now you've committed so many atrocities there. It's war crimes. Are we going to see them held accountable to it? Are they going to go to the ICC? Are they going to be held accountable?
So first of all, you're starting from a false premise, saying that there have been atrocities committed.
Well,
They
we have.
They haven't
So
been
we all
proved.
saw the video.
There's no
because
proof
if you're gonna
of
no, hold on.
atrocities. It hasn't been. No, yeah, I'll let you finish.
No.
I'll let you
Because
finish.
if you're
Let me
gonna
finish.
deny
I'll let
those
you finish.
atrocities,
Let
then
me
we're gonna deny
finish.
every atrocity
Okay, we're
done
not
by the
going to be
Russians.
able to speak if we don't give each other time to answer.
Go ahead.
Now I'm going to answer you. Thank you very much. When this war is over, when a proper investigation is held, and if the atrocities are proven, I will condemn them. Before that, I will not condemn Jack. Anything. I will not
Russians?
condemn a single
No
thing.
Russians?
What Russians
gonna
did in
condemn the
Ukraine,
Russians?
what the Russians did in Ukraine is obvious.
Oh, it's obvious. Well, it's
This
obvious.
entire
So you go
city-
in the court of law, you just say, oh, it's obvious, there's no need to investigate.
Okay, hold
You
on.
just said it.
Let's compare the accusations. Let's compare the accusations. I think, hold on, guys. I think a good metaphor for this situation is, on one side, you find a dead body in a room during the night, and you ask, who did this? Some people say, oh, it was that guy. His name is Ukraine. And you're like, okay, maybe he did it, maybe he did not. Let's check it out. Let's find out who actually
Let's
did
check it, yeah.
And on the other
Remember
hand,
this word.
on the
Let's
other
check
hand,
it.
we have a crowd of people looking at two men, and
we
one
have
of
to
those
check
men
it?
starts shanking the other one, and he kills him
Do
in
we
front of
check it?
everybody.
Do we check it or
and,
just
and
go-
we're like, and these individuals are acting as if those two cases are exactly the same.
They are.
Oh, that was Ukraine. Yeah, it's proven. It's proven. It hasn't been proven.
Okay, so-
the atrocities Russia did have been proven.
How?
How?
You said after the war.
Satellite
The only way is after the
Which
war.
one? Which one?
Satellite.
Which-
Really? So the butcher. So you're talking about satellites.
Satellite
Images are proof.
They're one of the many.
So no,
different proofs
hold
that
on.
we
If
have.
you go to a court of law and you say satellite images, would that hold in court? Would that be enough evidence? Was that a
Hold on.
conclusive evidence?
I love
that it
that
was
example.
committed by
I
the
like-
Russians.
I'll answer that.
How?
I'll answer that.
Okay. It's
I'll answer that. There will
photos.
still be
How
a
do we
court.
know? Okay. How do we know the timing of the photos or the videos? How do we know the timing?
Again, satellite images. We can see the
Okay,
timing.
Yeah.
What's the
By
satellite?
whom?
What's the
Who's
satellite?
supplying those?
Oh, who's supplying those?
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
okay.
'cause-
I'm going to
'cause
say,
why is it one word for
the
one and one
UN
word
is
for
supplying
another?
those, and he's gonna say we can't trust the UN.
Of course we can't trust them. Of course not.
So who do you trust? Russian media?
No.
An independent country.
So we don't trust
An
anyone.
independent
Where
country.
are we?
A
What are
third
we
party.
doing?
Independent
An
investigation,
independent
not highly likely.
Oh, yeah, sure,
no, they might have,
independent
not because they were there. The Russians were there. People
Sure.
died. Doesn't mean it was them.
Independent-
We can
independent
argue
investigation.
saying the moment they left, the Ukrainians came over and they killed them.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah. How can you prove that? Can you
yeah,
prove that that's wrong?
Of course.
Can you
of course.
prove that?
Ukrainians just killed themselves.
No,
Let-
why
let-
not?
let me
Why
add
not?
something here.
They've been bombing people in Donbass.
I think there's a theme
why would they
going
not?
on here. There's a theme going on here. There's a theme going on here. The Russians claim that in Maidan, Ukrainians were shooting
No, but-
themselves.
okay.
Russians claim during this war, Ukrainians are bombing
Simple
themselves.
question.
And Russians claim
Pablo.
that in Bucha, Ukrainians killed
Okay,
themselves.
I'll ask you this
Now,
question.
I think it's a little bit questionable
Okay.
at this point. Might as well just say, oh, the Jews just gassed themselves. They just killed themselves, right?
Why do you always
Nazis
deviate?
were
Why do you
blameless.
always bring up the Jews in the middle? Why do you
Because
have to
it's
do
a similar
that? Why do
situation.
No.
It's a
There are
similar
atrocities.
situation. It's
There are
not a similar
atrocities
situation.
all over the place. Even now, right now, people are dying. Exactly, yeah. They try and bring up the Jews in the middle. No, we're not talking about the Jews. 6 million, that's a Holocaust, that's a bad
I
thing.
want to debunk
We don't
what
have
this guy is saying.
One question. Right.
Another one.
No. It's the same question. I want you to answer it. Yeah, it's the same question I asked you. Now, when you say that video or loads of videos that we saw of Ukrainian soldiers killing Russian soldiers, you said the only way to verify is after the end of the war, and it has to be done independently.
No, it has to be done by
whom?
by people who will investigate.
Okay, by investigators.
Independently.
Okay, after the
Whoever
war.
wants to
So
investigate
how
can investigate it, and then we, the people who watch it, will define who has the most trustworthy source.
Okay, so why would you not use the same for the Russians in Bucha and everywhere else? Why would you not?
But I am.
No, you're not. You just said no. We saw the satellite.
No,
You
hold
saw
on,
the
hold on.
satellites. You
No,
said
wait,
images
wait.
of satellites.
Let me answer,
So
let
that
me
can't be
answer. Let me
verified.
answer.
It can't be.
Let
We
me
can't
answer.
verify the timing.
Let me answer. Let me answer that. Let me answer. Okay. So as I said, same example as before. If I shank this individual here, now no hard
Okay.
feelings. I love
Listen
you.
to this,
I love
yeah.
you, but
Listen
if
to
I
the analogy,
shank him
yeah.
right now,
Yes.
if I shank him right now, and he falls on the floor and dies,
Yeah.
every single one of us can clearly see I just shanked him.
Yeah.
But there will still be a trial. You find out what exactly happened.
Yeah.
And the same way, there will still be a trial for what the Russians have done in Ukraine. Except that we have so much more evidence, so much more proof, and it's so much clearer what is going on.
What's
It's
the
such-
proof? What's the
so-
proof? Bring
What
it.
is the proof?
So much, such a bigger scale of what's going on in Ukraine.
What is the
that
proof?
we can
What
all
is your
see
proof?
what's
You just
going
see
on.
proof.
We
It's
would
such
all
an-
be able to see if I would stab somebody right now. We
All right,
all
okay,
able
okay.
to see
Stop.
what
All right,
Russia's
hold on.
doing
Okay.
in Bucha.
So,
You guys are
in
just
Bucha,
choosing to be blind.
is there a video? Is there a video?
There will
hold on.
be
You
an
just talk.
investigation
No.
in both cases.
All right.
In both cases, there will be an investigation.
Let me ask you this. In Bucha, was there a clear video of a Russian person holding a Russian passport saying, listen, look at this, and I'm killing this person? This is clear evidence. Do you have any of that?
Okay.
No, you don't.
You guys think this
if you're
like-
not
this
treat
is
the
a-
same,
this is a
you
like likely situation to happen. I pull out my passport from my pocket. My name is Pavlo Mitrashuk. I was born here. I'm going to stab this man. Everybody look at me stabbing this man. Look at me. Is this proof enough? All right. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not.
You might double standards for the same crime in the same region. You are using double standards for exactly the same crime done in the same region.
We don't need that much proof.
Oh, really? There are bodies.
So what's the point?
What is the Russians' motivation to kill like 100 civilians?
Ukrainian civilians.
Yeah.
To demoralize the Ukrainians into submitting, into resigning.
Okay, fair enough. Let's pretend that sounds credible. I will tell you exactly what will be Ukraine's motivation to kill a bunch of civilians.
Is this? Everyone is talking about it. Everyone is saying, oh, look at the atrocities.
No, not everyone.
Ukrainian nationalists have been killing
people are brainwashed.
Okay. No, glad you're not. Actually, it's 52 countries in Africa don't, so that's a good thing.
Okay, so you say that Russia would be interested in killing civilians in order to subdue Ukraine to surrender, okay? Let's pretend that's credible, right? Ukrainian nationalists have been killing collaborators, people that they have accused of collaborating with Russians. They have been killing civilians, right? They have been killing civilians that took humanitarian aid from the Russian army. You know, this is a known fact. Now, it is a known fact. There are plenty of videos about it.
I've seen Russian media, yes, it's a known fact.
I've seen videos of civilians getting slaughtered simply because they have been accused in collaborating with the Russian army, right? So this is a possible cause for that slaughter, you know, and it needs to be investigated.
And now I can show the double standards in your arguments. Fair enough. Were the people who were killing them holding a Ukrainian passport, spelling out their name, saying I'm doing this?
There you go. So we go back to the point. So you can't.
Here we go.
Okay,
You can't be held to the same scrutiny that you're holding my argument.
That's perfect.
Because your arguments don't stand up to scrutiny.
30% of the people in Ukraine, 30% of the people in Ukraine are Russian, are ethnically Russian, and a lot of them are pro-Russian.
What is proof?
Something that you can demonstrate.
Something you can.
They've been shown.
Joking.
What is proof? What proof do you need? What proof do you need?
We can't verify the timing in those images. The timing is not verified. It's not being verified. So we can't know for sure it happened at a certain time in a certain place.
The weapon of mass destruction to go and attack Iraq. Was that a proof? The people believed it. At that time,
this is an absolutely ridiculous situation that when a country gets invaded, gets bombed, starts getting into people.
What about this?
Ukraine has got invaded by Russia. Ukraine has got its people in jeopardy because of Russian troops, because of the Russian invasion, because of the Russian bombings. And now, in the middle of it, you don't seem to know. After Russia is invaded and after Russia brought all of this pain and strife and death to Ukraine, you guys stand here with a straight face, looking me in the eye and telling me, oh no, it was all Ukraine.
Ukraine has brought pain. Ukraine has brought pain upon its own people. It's been killing its own people, its own pro-Russian citizens, its own ethnical Russian minority. Okay, this has been going on for 8 years.
Sometimes it repeats some people, I guess. But anyway, this is not right now. This is not about YouTube. Right now, for me, this is about informing people. This is about informing people about what's going on. And your arguments don't stand up to scrutiny.
Of course they do.
They do not. I just showed you that the scrutiny you showed to my arguments also negate your arguments.
Okay, perfect.
So that's not a valid argument.
Are you saying that those crimes committed by the Ukrainian soldiers cannot be verified? So therefore, we can't talk about them. By the same logic, it's the same accusations.
No. It's the same example I gave you guys. If right now one man stabs the other man in front of everybody, this is not the same thing as us finding a dead body in the night and not knowing who did it. On one side, we all saw the man stabbing another man. On the other side, there needs to be a proper investigation.
How do we know? How? How can you prove he was a Russian person?
Okay, hold on. So Ukrainians at war with Russia. Ukrainians are getting killed by somebody.
Okay, what about Russians? No, we're not talking about Russians. What aboutism? No, hold on. What aboutism? We're not talking about the Russians. We're not talking about the Russians. We are talking about the Ukrainian war crimes. It's not what about. It's not what about.
You do not know what about this means.
No, you're implying that now. You say it's not about. We're not talking about the Russians here.
All the restrictions of Corona. And then immediately
They do.
Russia.
Majority does.
Okay, I challenge everyone here to look in YouTube interviews with Mariupol residents, right, receiving humanitarian aid from Russia and speaking against the atrocities of the massive Azov battalion in Mariupol.
You know, where they attack
Right?
people.
I challenge everyone here. It's a lie.
And then
Big
someone
portion of
responds using
Ukrainians
terrorism.
don't support the Ukrainian
You know what I mean?
government.
They've been
There is
pushed
a big
to-
incentive for
do you know what I mean?
Ukrainian
It's-
nationalists to slaughter those people. Popular millions of Ukrainian army. And this needs to be investigated by an independent source and verified.
I think it's very interesting that you speak about citizens of Mariupol willingly accepting Russian provisions, as you say, or Russian humanitarian help, when they are in fact unwillingly accepting Russian bombs falling on their houses right now
Really?
and
Not
shelling
Ukrainian
the
bombs.
cities and shelling the
Have a
cities.
look at the
Ukrainians
interviews.
are
Have a
still
look at the
holding
interviews,
Mariupol. Ukrainians are still holding Mariupol.
They're not. That's a lie.
They're still holding Mariupol.
That's a lie.
What do you mean that's a lie?
That's a lie.
Russia is taking over Mariupol.
Everyone can verify here Mariupol has fallen under Russian control.
Now that is a lie. That is a lie.
Everyone
No,
is verified.
everybody who's watching this right now, at the moment when you watch this, stop this video and go and check it right now and see if Mariupol has fallen
We
or
can't
not.
check.
It
Thanks,
hasn't.
thanks to the West, we can't have any access
Thanks
to
to
any.
the West, of
Yeah,
course. Thanks to the
them.
West.
Yeah, we
Thanks
can't
to the
verify
West.
anything. The
I think
only
you're
source.
showing your true colors really well. No matter what the West says, even if the West says something like raping is bad, killing is bad, this guy will be still like, no, the West is always wrong. It means that raping is good and killing is good.
America's always been wrong.
Always been wrong. Always. You see, you're showing your true colors.
America is
our
Alright,
true colors.
If you I have. Let me just finish with one thing. I'll just say one thing. If you can never agree with your enemy, you're being controlled by him. Now think about that.
Okay, fair enough. So what I wanted to say is that, yeah, sure, maybe we can trust the news, maybe we cannot, right? It's irrelevant. But there is some people that we can definitely trust, and these are the residents of Mariupol. And again, I would like to encourage everyone to just look at interviews with residents. They are available online, and just hear what they have to say. They clearly know who bombed them. They have an idea, right? They clearly know what they have been through these last 8 years under your government, right? They clearly know how they have been treated at the hands of the Russian army. So perhaps you can trust them more than anyone else. Thank you.
I think people's tongues get to turn the other way around when there are guns pointed at their heads, and when their children are at risk of being killed. So I think seeing the amount of the dead, seeing the bodies, seeing the casualties, seeing the destruction brought on Ukraine by Russia is a lot more credible
I
than
thought you were
asking random
defending,
people
you were
on the
doing
street
right,
what
and
is
Russia
going
is
on.
backing off.
Russia is backing off from Kyiv,
Yeah,
not from
but-
southern Ukraine.
Yeah, but everyone talks in the media. They say, "Oh, listen, the Russians are beaten. The Russians are getting battered."
At Kyiv.
You know, one symbol. Every time you look on the media, every time you look on the BBC or anywhere else, also one Russian tank was destroyed, and this was gunned down and all that stuff. And then suddenly, Russia is so powerful that can actually destroy the whole of the cities. Which one is it?
Because Russia has a lot of power in terms of shelling different cities. There's no defense against shelling. Let's just say that. You can't defend yourself against lots of missiles falling on you. But the Russian military has proved itself to be very, very, very incompetent. And in the field of battle, the Russians do not stand up.
Hey, listen. No.
What can the Russians do? They can shell cities very well from a distance.
Yeah.
From a distance.
Yeah.
Like genociding every single person who's in there.
All right.
That they can
Yeah.
do.
All right.
Check out Grozny in Chechnya. The Russians leveled the
Yeah,
city.
they did,
And
yeah.
only after they leveled Grozny, the Chechens finally surrendered, which is exactly what the Russians are aiming at Ukraine.
But
They
you
think
know-
the Ukrainians will surrender after their cities are leveled, the population is killed, and their culture is enslaved.
But do you know that a war, any war, you know, in Iraq, America went in with like about 1 million people, Do you know how long it took them to take over the whole country? It's not. It's 3 weeks. Now we are 6 weeks in, and the whole country is done. Do you know it took Iraq and Kuwait, in a very small country, it took them 7 months to fully occupy the country. 7 months. It's a small country without anything. You know. Half a million.
You know how
You're getting your facts, buddy. It took them 5 days.
A few days.
But it wasn't military because that's
Well, yes, it was military. They invaded the military.
It wasn't an invasion. It was an invitation by the Crimean people. That's a different story.
It was no
you know, when he keeps saying that, the right. You know what happened?
By the Russian guys.
What you don't see.
Whoever Ukrainians were against the regime fled, or either fled or just stayed as quiet as humanly possible, so that they would not be killed by the Russian authoritarian.
Do you know what you don't see now? You know, America last week has started. I mean, they've increased the crude oil they are buying from Russia. They've increased it by 43%.
America's increased the crude oil.
Yeah, they increased.
America's put sanctions on Russia.
That is exactly. You are being brainwashed. They have. Yes.
Yeah, they have that
You're right.
No, hold on. Can I make it? No, hold on. They've increased. No, hold on. That's why you don't see. That's why exactly. Who is American? Someone from there.
I mean, Germany is still buying Russian gas. It doesn't mean just because you need something from someone doesn't mean.
Yeah, it's all over the internet, man. It's all over the news.
Anyway, doesn't mean that you're.
Dude, if you increase the trade with the
disagree.
countries, so where's the sanctions?
I disagree with the choice to keep buying the crude oil. I do disagree with it.
They didn't buy. They increased it to 43%. And do you know what they're doing? They are selling that old crude oil refined. They're selling it back to Europe. You don't get it. You don't understand. You don't see the reason. You don't see.
Do you know
anything.
how much it costs to transport oil across the ocean?
And that's the first thing. The second thing is the gas that we're gonna import.
So hold on a second. We're deviating the conversation from Ukraine